4-14, and I'm going to take a look at 4-13, which is of course very similar. And in this case, instead of just finding quartiles, which we will, and we're going to do those in a little more exacting format, we're also going to find other percentages. So if you wanted to find, everything below the 65th percentile, you can do that using this particular method. So here we go. It's number 13 says the Thomas Supply Company Inc. is a distributor of gas power generators. And it gives us a list of numbers, which it gave us in a data file. So I just imported that data file. And then I did this, and you'll see why a little later. I just went and put the, I count the numbers. I guess had I started, not labeled this up here and just started at 1, I'd have that over on this side, but I didn't do that. One way to do this too, by the way, is if you just get 1 and 2 in there, and then you highlight them, and then you grab it, okay, it figures out what you want to do, and you can even see in the little box there that it's counting for me, and so I can fill that in 1 through 30, and I'm going to need that in a little bit. So here's the first question. Says then determine the first and third quartiles. So like we did before with quartiles, we use this formula up here, just L is equal to N, which is our count, or 30, okay, plus 1. So 31 times the percent that we're looking for divided by 100. Relatively easy formula, and so I've plugged that in here. And again, I just do it this way. This is equal to parentheses my N plus 1 parentheses times, and in this case I'm looking for the first quartile, so parentheses 25 divided by 100 and parentheses, hit enter. And that gives me 7.75. Well, that tells me how far down, okay, so I've numbered this, and so instead of having to count, I can just come 7. And then what that 0.75 means is that I'm 3/4 of the way between this number and this number, and that's will give me my first quartile in a more precise sense. And so I need to calculate what 3/4 of that difference is, basically, okay, and add it to my 31. Okay, so what that means is I'll come here and do it like this. I'll say this is equal to, okay, it's actually 0.75 times, I'm actually doing this a little different than I did it before because it makes sense, the difference between 34 and 33. So I'm going to need parentheses there, and I'm going to say this one, my 8th number here, okay, minus my 7th number, end parentheses, and then I have to add it to my 7th number. Okay, so then I can hit plus and this one, and hopefully that will work out okay. And it does. Okay, it gives me 33.25. So my difference in between those was 3, right? And so 3/4 of 3 is 2.25, right? It is. And so I add 2.25 to that, and it gives me 33.25 is my first quartile. Okay, my third quartile, then, again, I just do it the same way. Okay, what I did here, so I can add the numbers to that, or the dollar signs to that, I'm sorry, so that it would keep my reference consistent there. And then actually I can drag this one down. It's going to end up giving me the same answer, okay? But then if I want to, I can come up and I can change my number here just to that 75, hit enter. Oops, I did it in the wrong one. Dang. I want to do it here. Okay. And that gives me 23 1/4. Again, I come down then to 23rd, which is 50, and I want to be a quarter. This one's going to be pretty easy. Quarter of the difference between 50 and 51, which is obviously going to be a quarter, and so I can put in the formula, and that's going to give me that 50 1/4. Okay, now how about decile? What's a decile mean? Well, decile's 10, right? And so the second decile, or 20%. Okay, so again, I can just kind of drag this down. It gives me the same number, but if I change my 75 up here to a 20, okay, that should do the calculating for me. I get 6.2, so 6.2, so 20% of the difference between 27 and 31, okay, which would be 20% of 4, which would be 0.8, okay, so it should be, my answer is going to end up being 27.8, but again, if I wanted to do that, I could say it's simply equal to, excuse me for a second while I let that ring. Okay, so it's going to be equal to my 0.2 times, oh, I need a parentheses, this one, which is at my, I'm sorry, my seventh one, my next one, so it's that minus that, parentheses, plus, again, go back to my 7, and I hit enter, and that gives me my correct answer, 27.8. I do the same thing again for the 8th decile, which would be 80, right, 80%, okay, drag that down if I want to, change this to an 80, and do the same math over here. Okay, I'll try to keep this brief, and I'll get to this one, which is the 67th percentile. Okay, so once again, I can drag the same formula down and change my number up here to 67 and hit enter, and that gives me 20.77. okay, and I got to go to 20, my 20th number, which is 47, okay, and I got to take then 77% of the difference between, wait a minute, 77% of the difference between 47 and 47, but there is no difference between 47 and 47, and so if I multiply anything times 0, I get 0. So that tells me that my 67th percentile is going to stay right at 47. And I did the math, you know, I put in the formula, but it was going to come up with the same answer. Your guys's might not, so you might want to do the formula. So that's it for 4-14.